I had been talking about vitamin C. I was going to start making fun of Linus Pauling for being a bit of a quack. This guy here. I won't spend really any time here except to say he was a genius. He received 2 Nobel Prizes, the only person to ever receive 2 individual Nobel Prizes in history, one for peace. But he had some crazy crackpot ideas about vitamins. He believed that you need about 60 milligrams of vitamin C in a day, and he was taking 40,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a day. He thought it could cure cancer and prevent colds and everything. Yeah.
How much is in
Like 1,000, like 40 of those a day. Yeah. So, it's just a really good way to have truly expensive urine because it's all water soluble. Your liver, you reach the renal threshold, and it just passes right out of your body. So it's really hard to overdose on water soluble vitamins because your kidney. I mean, you're putting a load on your kidneys. It's actually not especially good to do that. But the fat soluble ones you have to be a little bit careful of because you can reach. It will dissolve into the fat tissues of your body and. I'm sad that I don't have more time. I have so many interesting stories to tell you guys about vitamin E. Oh, it's a really interesting story. Let's do vitamin C here, though. All right, so here's a few of the things that it does actually do. I'm not going to go into the molecular details of all this because I don't have time, but it has a role in bone formation and wound healing and skin integrity. And we'll see how that manifests itself in a moment in its deficiency. Maintenance of healthy gums. It helps turn on folic acid activity. It's used in the liver to help create the bile acids out of cholesterol, and in the brain to convert in the pineal gland to convert tryptophan to serotonin. It is in fact an antioxidant. It is so. When we talked about metabolism, I didn't really open up the molecular details of the TCA cycle. I don't know, Zane, did you ever have to? You've taken other science classes. Did you have to go through the TCA cycle? So you saw the molecular pathway of it, yeah. In that, if we were to open that up, citric acid is actually part of the intermediates in metabolism. So it's like fundamental to energy processing in the body. And all of our understanding of it was initiated by the discovery that it prevents scurvy. All right, what is scurvy? We'll get to that in a moment. Vitamin C, your RDA is about 60 milligrams per day. About 40 is the minimum that is required to stave off scurvy. So for a healthy adult, a normal adult, you need to get a minimum of 40 milligrams of vitamin C in a day to prevent scurvy. And it's pretty easy to do that if you're eating anything even resembling a healthy diet at all. Marginally, it doesn't even have to be that healthy a diet. Vitamin C is in a lot of things. However, they've known that spinach is a great source of vitamin C for a long time. So this is a 1939 study in which they took a bunch of, I think these were lamb, some sheep, and they gave them various forms of spinach or solutions of vitamin C or unsupplemented diets of just some sort of grain that did not have vitamin C in it at all. And then they looked at a scurvy score on the right-hand side. And, spinach did as well a job of preventing scurvy as a solution of vitamin C. And unsupplemented, there was very high counts of scurvy. So they've known that this is the case for quite a long time. Scurvy, prepare yourself. What is it? Well, it's characterized by, there's a gradation of scurvy, right? It starts with people who just have a sort of lassitude, a little bit of fatigue, to the point as it progresses where you're not able to walk, and then things get really unseemly. Your gums begin to swell, become bloody. Often you lose your teeth, and you can't eat because, dear Lord, your mouth looks like that. And the legs and the rest of the body, but particularly the legs, start to form bruises. The skin integrity breaks down. Scurvy is a pretty unpleasant thing to have to deal with. All right. This guy, Dr. James Lind, happy, healthy-looking fella right there. He was from Scotland. That's the University of Glasgow. In the background, over his arm there, he's holding up his text on the treatment of scurvy that he wrote back in the day. He was one of the first people to, in modern era, during the Enlightenment, to make a careful study of scurvy. And these are some drawings from that textbook that he's holding up there in the picture. You see these pretty nasty looking photos of bruises, welts, skin degradation, thrombosis, deep thrombosis. Your body basically starts to fall apart. All right. And where was he seeing this? Does anybody know this? Where was he coming in contact with this? Anyone? Yeah. Sailors. Indeed. Yeah. So he spent quite a bit of time he was commissioned to spend time with the British Navy dealing with scurvy. All these British soldiers were getting pretty messed up. Now, this is actually a pretty nice looking drawing. I can imagine these people looked quite a bit worse than they're drawn in this depiction here. But he hypothesized that the problem is that these people out at sea are not eating something properly, because they get out there and they have a diet of hardtack, which is basically these like hardcore super stale scones kind of thing, like these crumpets, basically a big dry dough ball. And then they would eat fish, right? So he had 6 test groups, and they had them drink a quart of cider a day. One of the group gargled with sulfuric acid. I'm sure that was really fun with these swollen gums and swollen, bleedy gums. Gargling with sulfuric acid must have been great for them. Some of them had 2 spoonfuls of vinegar 3 times a day. Half a pint of seawater, which must have been really, really fun for those guys. And then barley water. And then the only one that made any sense here, they had 2 oranges and 1 lemon a day. As to why, if you notice, these are all acidic compounds here. As to why, pardon me. Yeah. Pardon me. As to why that is the case, I don't actually know what his thinking is. I never read the primary text. Maybe some year I'll do that. But he gave them 2 oranges and a lemon a day, and those people did much better. In fact, rapidly recovered. So at least he didn't know it was vitamin C. He didn't know what it was in the oranges, but he knew that citrus fruit, something in citrus fruit, was able to cure scurvy. So there is some scant evidence out there that Popeye, the sailor man, may have been modeled on scurvy-ridden sailors. People that looked like Popeye were not uncommon hanging around the wharfs of 19th century Europe. So here is a clip from a notebook, an animation model notebook from Fleischer Studios in 1936, where they said, Popeye has no teeth, use gums, show gums where desired. and there's a little bit of evidence to suggest that maybe Popeye was scurvy. So perhaps it was the vitamin C in there, although that evidence is scant. There was an article in the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine in 2002, which I'm quoting here. Not many people are aware that Popeye the Sailor Man was a well-recognized character to be seen around any English seaport in the days of sail. Protrusion of one eye was due to a hemorrhage behind the eyeball due to scurvy. So that was a common feature, I guess, of these people with scurvy. They had hemorrhages. They'd have their eyeballs sticking out one way or the other. This is one of the many hemorrhages on their body. The pipe juts out in front of his face because he's lost all of his teeth to scurvy, and he's holding his pipe between his upper and lower gums, etc. So that's an interesting hypothesis that maybe a lack of vitamin C did at least lead to the physical characteristics of Popeye, and so that's not ruling vitamin C out, but it's not the conclusive smoking gun that we need to say that this is exactly why that Popeye ate vitamin C. So it's still a little bit of a confusing conundrum here. We're gonna push forward, but before I do that, I want to just take a look at how vitamins in our culture has reacted to them with time. So there's a movie that came out maybe in the 90s, maybe the aughts, called Wellville, The Road to Wellville, something like that. I haven't watched it in years, but it's about the Kellogg story and who that guy was, the sanitarium or the health spa that he started. He was a bit of an eccentric person living in Battle Creek, Michigan, my home state. But Kellogg's, one of the things about Kellogg's, he was a devotee of Elmer McCollum, and he believed that vitamins belonged supplemented into the food that we eat. So he started this odyssey that I'm about to take you on over the next 5-6 slides of supplementing our diet with processed foods that have been fortified with vitamins. All right, specifically adding vitamins to foods from which they did not naturally derive. And mostly they were in cereals and grains, all right, because it was easy in the formulation to be able to add in vitamins to them. So Kellogg's introduced in 1928 Pep cereal. This was the first fortified cereal. Who eats cereal flakes in the mornings? Anybody? Any of you guys? Yeah, well, I do sometimes, not all the time, but and it's pretty hard to find an unfortified cereal. I don't even know where you would go about that. And Pep, the marketing on Pep was kind of interesting. I put some of these more controversial ones up here. On the left-hand side, we see an example of them marketing to kids. These little kids hanging around that sousaphone there are the Little Rascals. Have any of you guys ever seen the Little Rascals on TV, reruns of that? I much older, obviously, saw reruns when I was a child. But that's going back to the 30s. And Pep had this program of buttons, little treats, kind of like Cracker Jack boxes. You could get buttons in the box of Pep. You see here on the box in the middle, there's Superman, Little Orphan Annie, some other guy I don't even recognize. Popeye was certainly one of the pins that you could find in Pep's because he was associated with good nutrition, and he was supposedly a role model of that for kids. And a lot of this marketing was right at women, of course, and we're going to see this throughout how women have been a particular target of the vitamin industry for a long time. This totally mind-bending, sexist ad here by Pep. So the harder a wife works, the cuter she looks. Gosh, honey, you seem to thrive on cooking, cleaning, and dusting. I'm all tuckered out by closing time. What's the answer? Vitamins, darling. I always get my vitamins. So women preying upon the insecurity of women to try and sell products has in the vitamin industry has a long history. In the 1940s, it changed a little bit. So it wasn't just it wasn't about having the energy to be the ideal wife. Here we have these words: resolved. Here's this housewife who is resolved to give my entire family their full quota of vitamins because I know that adequate vitamins are necessary to health and well-being. This is no time to be frail. Bread. Here's another grain that is getting fortified. It says here, and today we can buy the new enriched white bread with all of its extra measure of vitamin B1, niacin, and iron, and be much more certain of your diet is up to full war standards. All right, so the way that vitamins were marketed evolved with the images, the cultural images that we had for people. So here's this brave woman clearly fighting the Nazis with a diet of white bread. All right, 1950s. The truth of the matter is that up until this point, at least through the 30s and 40s, vitamins were still new, right? So vitamins, supplements that you would take that were not fortified into foods, they tasted gnarly. They did not taste good, right? So they were often these like liquid formulations that you take a spoonful of. And has anybody ever watched I Love Lucy? Any of you guys? Yeah, my mom was a fan. I've seen plenty. This is a really hilarious episode here where somehow Lucy gets sucked into doing advertisements for Vitamita Vegemin, vitamin supplements. And she's on stage and she has to do this stuff. And she's so excited to be on television. She starts taking a spoonful and it tastes utterly repulsive. The only way they were able to actually get a lot of the stuff down, and because many of these vitamins were not like eminently water soluble, they often added a lot of ethanol to the formulations. So these things were quite alcoholic. And if you watch this episode, she gets completely plowed by the end of the episode drinking this. She just starts slamming this vitamin thing, which tastes gross, but the alcohol helps the medicine go down, as it were. So there was a push, though, to make these by the vitamin producers to make the vitamins a little bit more readily palatable. So here's Ovaltine, and anybody ever had Ovaltine? I don't even know if you can still buy that stuff. You can, yeah. So Ovaltine was one of the first drinks. It's basically like a hot cocoa. It tastes like a hot cocoa. And they put a bunch of different vitamins in there. And they had different formulations. One that was supposedly the nightcap formulation. I'm not sure what they stuck in there to knock people out. But take a hit of hot cocoa, pass out, sleep happily, wake up, and help civilization advance. Also, there is the vitamin donut. Anything to make vitamins delicious for pep and vigor. Each donut fortified with a minimum of 25 units of vitamin B1. Kids, come and get them. You'll be so happy. All right, 1960s. Betcha Spike's getting his vitamins. This kid's gotten his butt kicked. Still aggressive marketing to kids. We've got Fred Flintstone hits the scene in 1960 through 1966, syndicated. And he became an excellent marketing ploy for chewable vitamins. Anyone ever had a Flintstones vitamin? Yeah. All right. And then still working on women's image of themselves. All right, and concepts of beauty and so what do we say here? Why do you think it all happens on the outside, implying that beauty actually comes from within? If you want to be beautiful, you need to take vitamins. Take one a day. Give a thought to the inner you. I won't read it all, but you guys get the point here. By the time we get to the 1970s, still strongly marketing to the person who's actually going to the grocery store, which is mom. So nothing like a little bit of fear tactic here. Almost 50% of American children don't get enough vitamin C. This is certainly a false claim. And then so there's mom with her kids, and then there's the single woman. It's for the inner you, the you who needs 50% more iron every day than even a grown man. You need more because you lose iron with every period. So certainly, indeed, a true statement. In fact, I would say it's higher than 50%. But marketing strongly to women through the 70s. In the 80s, women had entered the workforce, and men were making decisions about what they were going to eat in the morning and getting less eggs and bacon cooked for them. So here's a working man with a little string tied around his finger. Don't forget your vitamins. Really strong marketing, strong push towards eating your vitamins in the morning. Here's King Vitaman. So there is this shift now because as women have joined the workforce, more men are doing shopping, more men are making food choices for themselves, and the industry's marketing changed to reflect that. This is not to say that women were ignored by any means. So here again are mothers trying to get vitamins in their kids. Flintstones are out, Pac-Man is in, Atari is ascendant. We have shifted culturally to the computer age. All right, so I've just gone through about 6 slides talking about how vitamin producers have been selling vitamins to these food producers, the people that make cereals, grains of different sorts. And then there's this parallel track of direct marketing through vitamin supplements that you can buy directly from the vitamin producers, right? And this has swelled to, I don't know, in the U.S., $7 billion market. So, welcome to the 90s. Graft and corruption is here. The big story in vitamins in the 90s was the vitamin cartel. Has anyone heard this story? Does anyone in any of the econ classes ever talk about cartels or antitrust laws, or you hear about that? Anyone ever talk about the vitamin cartel blow up? All right, so it turns out in 1999, this company, Sanofi Aventis, which was a vitamin producer in France, got leaned on by U.S. federal regulators and finally cracked and spilled the beans about this cartel of 8 different vitamin producers, these 8 different pharmaceutical companies that were having secret meetings and coming to secret accords to fix prices and to allocate market share, to allocate contracts to the different food and cereal producers, cereals, crackers, drinks, and even into the animal feed market. They allocated contracts. And this is for a host of vitamins. You see it down there, A, B, 1, 2, 5, 6, C, D3, E, beta carotene, other carotenoids, biotin, folic acid. That's just a partial list. The head of this circus was Roche, Hoffmann La Roche, out of Switzerland. The U.S. slapped the largest ever, I don't know if it stands as such, but at the time it certainly was the largest ever fine for this sort of anti-competitive behavior, $500 million, and then backed that up with BASF, another European company from Germany, with $225 million, both in 1999. Well, as soon as the U.S. Hit that, then Europe was quick to do an investigation and found out that it actually was much larger than Roche and BASF. These 6 other companies were part of this. Sanofi Aventis had actually got off extremely light because they were the ones that were the first to fold on the group. But Roche, BASF, Merck, Solvay Pharmaceuticals, Daiichi, a whole host of Eisai, Takeda, all from Japan. So the top got blown off the vitamin industry. European Union had in their law they were able to charge up to 10%, I think, in fines of their market share, annual market share. So the total EU thing was something like 855 million euros, almost $1 billion. That's a pretty steep fine, I think. I don't know. Pretty steep fine. So today, have things really changed? Well, it's still, vitamins are still marketed trying to, this is the way marketing works, right? They try to see what people envision for themselves, see what they think their weaknesses are, and go for it. There is quite a bit of marketing for men. Using sports figures. I don't really know who Dwight Howard is, but he's got bulging muscles, and gosh, wouldn't that be fun to be like that? Or maybe you just think of yourself as a kind of a befuddled dude in your 30s with a dog. Who knew you needed some vitamin D? But I can relate, man. I wear flannels like that. I should need some vitamin D. Or perhaps you're outdoorsy. You want to climb mountains, or you sit at home and watch Ellen DeGeneres. Whatever it is, we have a vitamin source for you. And rather than stick it in Ovaltine, vitamin water zero is the new way to drink down your vitamins, while Roche, BASF, and all those companies continue on their way to profit. All right, so let's actually look at some of these vitamins, where they are, and we need to get to the bottom of this Popeye story here. All right, so here are a list of vitamins. These are the vitamins that the cartel was fixing. All right, important vitamins. And what I've done here is looked at a host of different foods: spinach, compared them to yams, beets, garlic. Why didn't Popeye reach for yams? Because I am what I am, and that's all that I am. Or clearly they were aware of beets. There was an episode called Greek Mythology in which Popeye claims to have derived strength by sniffing garlic. That's something else. All right, so let's compare the nutritional content of all of these. And keeping in mind that Popeye hit the scene in 1929, if we look down this list, the only two that really stick out as being vitamins that have significantly higher values than any of these other vegetables would be vitamin A. Spinach is actually extremely high in vitamin A at 60% of the RDI. And there is vitamin B6, which has actually 95% in garlic. Garlic has 95% of the B6. So it could either be vitamin A or vitamin B6. But my friends, vitamin B6 wasn't actually discovered until 1934. Vitamin A was discovered in 1913 by our pal Elmer McCollum. So let's go down the path of least resistance and think about vitamin A a little bit. All right, so here he is, same old guy. He's a little bit older than he was. His ears aren't quite as prominent as they were in the first picture I showed you. And he discovers vitamin A in 1913, or at least he gets the laurels for it. This is how he becomes Dr. Vitamin. He was initially at University of Wisconsin and then moved on to Johns Hopkins later. And he was called Dr. Vitamin in 1951, the September 24th issue of Time. They ran a big piece about this guy, calling him Dr. Vitamin. He did. When he said jump, the industry jumped. He had a much greater effect on the American relationship with vitamins than any other person in history, without a doubt. We can see here, it's like this every night. This guy's knocked out. How about some vitamins? Oh boy! This whole attitude of the American populace towards vitamins was started by this guy, Elmer McCollum. But as was the case with many stories like this, sadly, I'm not going to get to tell you the story about Rosalind Franklin and Watson and Crick and the discovery of DNA. It's a really interesting story. There is often the labor of a very clever woman behind the laurels of a successful man. So this woman here, Marguerite Davis, was she was a graduate student that had graduated from the UC system somewhere. I think she was at UC Berkeley. She was at Berkeley, pardon me. And she applied for a postdoctoral fellowship to work with this guy, McCollum, at Wisconsin. She applied once. Wisconsin turned her down, and she was clearly better than any of the other applicants. She applied again, and she threatened Wisconsin with a lawsuit, said, "You can't do this to us women. We're taxpayers." So she kicked her way in and worked for this guy, Elmer McCollum. She just wanted to work. And in fact, it was this woman, Marguerite Davis, who actually discovered vitamin A. But she wasn't really mentioned in the Time article in 1951. But she persists and gets the nod in 2017, from me at least. All right. So here it is, the denouement, the moment you've been waiting for the last 2 weeks. 1929, Thimble Theater, the first appearance of Popeye. Look, Popeye's rubbing the wiffle for luck. You can't be alive. I shot you 15 times. Boom, 16. So initially, Popeye, when he first shows up, he got his strength from petting a duck, rubbing a duck. Kind of a hard trait to market. Really weird. Maybe translated into Popeye chicken. I don't know. Probably not. Maybe a coincidence. But it was the first incidence of Popeye eating spinach was actually on July 3rd, 1932. Good heavens! Are you a horse? Here he is in front of Olive Oyl, who is watching him imbibe a whole field of spinach. Spinach is full of vitamin A, and that's what makes humans strong and healthy. Help, police! He ate most of my nice spinach. Say, you must be a lunatic. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. All right, so it's vitamin A, folks. Mystery solved. Wasn't that fun? All right. Yeah, interesting, huh? You got it. Popeye was so popular during the Depression, during this time in the 30s. So 1932 is when it started, right? His obsession with spinach. It became rapidly so popular by mothers who were like, "Yeah, look it, Popeye eats a spinach. Aren't you gonna?" That it increased by 33% in the first year after the advent of that cartoon. And for a while, spinach was the third most popular kids' food after ice cream and turkey. Not today, but it was for a while back when Popeye was ruling the roost. Popeye brand spinach is still the second largest selling brand of spinach in the United States. There's something special about bird's eye chopped spinach. All this marketing just went right to the kids. This is when spinach suddenly became cool for kids. Bird's eye spinach is super eaten. All right. Turns out that Popeye has been, this is a funny thing that I came across. There are actually 2 spinach capitals of the world, both of them here in the United States. One in Alma, Arkansas, which claims to be the spinach capital of the world. They have a little statue of Popeye down there. And then there's Crystal City, Texas, which also claims to be the spinach capital of the world. And it has its own Popeye statue. Turns out that the jealous people of Crystal City could not countenance Arkansas having laid claim to the title of Spinach Capital of the World when they thought they were. So they went, some people from, malicious folks from Crystal City, whose intentions were less than crystal clear, went to Alma and stole the Popeye statue, thus ridding the evil town in Arkansas of its idolatrous ways. There was a reward posted for the return of the statue, and eventually they built this enormous thing out of brass and put a big fountain around it so you couldn't back your pickup truck up to it. So now there are still 2 spinach capitals of the world. You can take a spinach tour through the South and revel in the American glory that is our small town America. Turns out, though, facts. Those 2 towns in the South can claim to be the spinach capitals of the world, but in fact, the United States as a whole, most of the spinach in the United States is produced in California, and globally, that's only 1.4% of global spinach production. In fact, over 90% of spinach in the United States is produced by the humble Chinese out there working the fields, not trying to claim to be the capital of anything in the world, but just trying to feed the world. 21 million metric tons, which is a lot of spinach, folks, are produced in China. Now, just so that Popeye isn't completely wilted by these sort of damning facts, by the way, these are 2016 figures. All of that spinach that is produced in China is at a heavy usage of pesticides. So the United States, I didn't put the U.S. stat up, but the United States uses about 2 kilograms per hectare of pesticides. So still pretty high by global standards. That's the third highest behind Colombia. Colombia is second. But no. Colombia is first. China is second. Colombia is at 20 kilograms per hectare pesticide use for spinach. China is at 15 kilograms per hectare, and the United States is around 2. So there actually is there is quantitative evidence that you can find pesticides on spinach samples, that many spinach samples, that residue that comes from China, which is why it's important to wash your spinach as well as you can if it comes from Colombia, China, or even the United States, because there's probably pesticides on it, unless it is organic. But that notwithstanding, certainly China, some place in China probably better should lay claim to the mantle of spinach capital of the world. Sorry, Popeye. All right. Just so that this talk isn't completely bereft of science, vitamin A, what is vitamin A doing? Well, it's retinol. That's what it is there. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. It's converted to retinal. Another source of vitamin A is beta-carotene. It's basically a 2-pack. If you cut beta-carotene in half down the middle, you get yourself 2 molecules. You hydrolyze it, that double bond in the middle, you hydrolyze it, you get 2 molecules of retinol, which becomes retinal. And while Popeye's looking for his spinach, maybe it would have been better for him to reach for a carrot, because carrots are extremely high in beta-carotene, a much more vitamin A dense food than spinach. What is it doing? Here it is. You're using it in your the photoreceptors in your eyes, in the rods and the cones. So that long molecule, this is a zoom in, all these pictures here, the only one you really need to focus on is in the bottom right. Those proteins embedded in the membranes and the cells in the back of your eye and your retina have this molecule retinal. It starts out as 11-cis. It absorbs light, becomes 11-trans, and it starts this signaling cascade, which leads to sight. So vitamin A is essential for the functioning of sight. That's my story. Whether you like it or not, you should still eat your spinach. All right. So, thank you. That's the end of my story for you guys. I didn't cover everything I wanted to talk about this semester, but you got some interesting stories, so there you go. Next time, I'll do a little bit of review with y'all, and then we'll work on the debate project. Okay? Go forth and prosper.